It's interesting to compare like the Western hero to the noir hero, because I said earlier the noir hero starts out a loser in the beginning of the story, and he ends the story as a loser.
Yeah.
And a big part of his loserdom is his like being alone, and his being sort of having kind of an empty life. That's also very true of the classic Western hero, riding off into the sunset, right? And sometimes that has a tragic and sad element that he comes to serve society but can't fit into it. But it's much more really heroic than the noir hero. You know what I mean? It's less bitter and cynical. He's not really a loser. He's just a guy who doesn't fit in. Sometimes he's a loser, sometimes he's an outlaw, but the ethos of it is a little bit different, don't you think?
Yeah.
I guess one of the big differences seems to be, to me, that the Western hero is at the service of an integrated society. I mean, what do we talk about when we talk about Stagecoach is this whole idea of community forming. Whereas in noir, it seems like we're seeing community disintegrating,
right?
And then and the noir hero just trying to seize onto something to stay afloat.
Right.
Whereas the Western hero seems to be someone who is an outsider and doesn't fit in. Sometimes he becomes a part of the community at the end. Sometimes he doesn't. But typically, he's riding off into the sunset, right? But it's always at the service of this forming this community or protecting this nascent community. Whereas noir is. What set what the Western is set in the the mid 1800s or whatever maybe, and the noir is now in the early mid 20th century where everything's falling apart and there is no community in these these
well
cities.
It's interesting in Out of the Past that there is a community in Bridgeport, and that Robert Mitchum's character is there trying to make a living.
A lot of the action that takes place in Bridgeport feels more like a Western. I mean, the confrontation by the river when Joe tracks Jeff down, and he's leaning over a cliff edge to snipe at him. That's a very Western kind of scenario.
Totally. Yeah, and the state trooper who is kind of jealous of Jeff because of the attention that he's getting from Anne.
Well, there you got the man who shot Liberty Valance. I don't know if you ever saw that one. But there's a similar situation where there's two guys and there's the girl, and one of the guys is the more respectable, civilized guy. He's a lawyer played by Jimmy Stewart, and the other guy is this cowboy played by John Wayne. John Wayne's the one who actually takes care of the bad guys, but he doesn't get the girl in the end.
Yeah. And I think that these industries, these like really, I don't know what to call them, cutthroat or sort of hopeless industries, the rat race of entertainment industry, and then the rat race of sort of, what was he? He was like a leads guy. He fed leads to like this gossip journalist.
Right. He was a press agent. Yeah.
Press agent. Right. So those industries are kind of rife for this type of character.
I mean, you could have an interesting discussion about the loser as a modern phenomenon. Not that there weren't losers in the Middle Ages,
right?
And failed courtiers and stuff like that. But I do feel like when there's an expectation that everybody be getting ahead and improving their station in life instead of just sort of like being happy living in a certain certain status.
Yeah.
I think that creates like the character of the loser is probably much more predominant in the modern consciousness than it was in past eras. That would be my guess.
I once heard someone describe film noir as being about like the sort of like fever nightmare of the patriarchy as it's like, falling through the fingers like sand through the fingers of like these old white men, and that noir somehow like captures this. Obviously, I think that that's like a very reductive reading, but I think that there's something to it in that like there is a kind of I don't know, like it's a feature of these noir films that things are slipping away, and evading the sweet smell of success. It's like success is just around the corner, but it's always not quite attainable.
Right.
And then here too, you know, maybe we should give a quick synopsis of what the film is about. But with this main character, this screenwriter,
Joe Gillis.
Yeah, you know, it's like this is a very familiar kind of character to us nowadays, you know. So I don't know that it's the patriarchy, but it's definitely something, you know.
Yeah. No, it's just interesting to think about, like, you know, if you're a farmer and your crops fail, like, that's not you're being a loser,
right?
You know,
right?
I guess if you like don't work hard, then you're a loser, but that's like a different kind of thing. It's you know, like I feel like in the past, losers probably mainly existed in the political sphere and places where it was like you had to butter people up and kind of like, you know,
right?
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, of course, you could lose. You could lose if you're a merchant. You could do poorly.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure there's elements of that, but just in anywhere where like sort of it has to do not with just like monetary ambition, but also like status ambition.
There just seems to be something of a modern anxiety that's captured in these films,
right?
You know, and I don't think just for white men,
right?
You know, you know, something I wanted to say too is that like noir is a characteristically American genre, and I think that one of the things that it's sort of riffing with or dealing with is this American sort of like Protestant work ethic, or the like the American dream, you know, or like what you were saying before about this modern idea of everybody has to work to get ahead. And I think that California in general, and then Hollywood in particular, really sort of like amplify that. If America is emblematic of this ethos, this American dream, California really is like the land of opportunity out west, you know, gold rush.
And that's the classic setting for noir.
Exactly. So I think that sort of that uniquely American angst is, you know, underneath all of these noir films, at least the ones that we've watched so far. Yeah,
it is interesting how like at, you know, the time of this, maybe this emergence of the loser as like a central figure in American self-consciousness, like there's this genre of films that sort of like redeems the loser in a way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So you can see it as like a critique of different things about America, but also just like giving the loser his story.
Yeah. That's great.
Which is nice.